What's going on, folks? Elijah here. Recently somebody in my channel asked how to change the oil on the Kymco K Pipe. And while I know for those of us that have experience changing oil on vehicles, it seems like a no-brainer. But that's not the case for people who have never done this stuff before. So out of courtesy for people who have never done an oil change on any vehicle, yet alone the K Pipe, I'm going to do a quick oil change video. It should only take you about 10 minutes. You should only need a 17 millimeter socket wrench. Do not use a crescent wrench, as it may strip the oil drain bolt on your vehicle. And you should also get a crush washer to replace the one that is on there, though I never replace mine. But if you don't, eventually you're going to strip the threads out of your oil drain pan. And the only way to repair it is to either get a aftermarket plug, or actually you have to change half of the engine case, which means you have to take apart the whole engine to do that. Please get those items before you start your oil change. You're also going to need some oil and something to put your used oil in from your bike. Please, back when I lived in Michigan, and I was younger, we didn't really always care as much about the environment as we should have. But nowadays, it's well known that Michigan is a very polluted state. So please, take your oil to recycle it. I just use I use the container that I got the oil in to put it back in there, and then it makes it easy to take and recycle it at usually your auto parts store. Most of them have a oil repository place so the oil can be recycled. I use 10W40 synthetic Valvoline exclusively in this bike. Though I would recommend, if you have a newer engine or you rebuild it, that you use standard 4-stroke motor oil for the first 2 oil changes at least, to let that clutch soak that up. It seems to have a better performance doing that. And then switch to synthetic oil after your first 2 oil changes. I do have a magnetic drain plug in this one, so it does kind of attach a lot of the metal shavings. And on this oil change, I'm not going to do a full oil change. I'm just going to do the half oil change. So I have another motor case that I will show you why you would want to do a full oil change, in which you remove the oil screen. It's not a filter in this little bitty engine. It's just a screen, literally like a window screen. And every other oil change, I would recommend taking that off, or taking it out, but you do have to take off the left or the right clutch cover, which means you're going to want to have an extra gasket handy just in case the one you take off is ruined, so you have one to replace it. You can get a Chinese motor, 125 motor, any gasket kit online. You don't have to get a Kymco specific one. I got mine from VMC Motors because they're here in California, and I do try to source my parts from California when I can, just because it doesn't really make much sense getting all the way across from the world or all the way across the country when you can get it here. You should get it a lot faster too in the mail. With that, let's get started with the Kymco K Pipe 125 oil change. All right, so first things first, you're gonna want, you gotta have your funnel, and I'm just gonna, you gotta have your funnel. I use this great Guardians of the Galaxy popcorn tub from the movies, or was it California Adventure? Disney's California Adventure, to put my oil in. It's only 1 quart in this bike. You're not going to get a whole quart out of it, obviously. You shouldn't try to drain it completely. Only if you do a full, complete engine teardown should you have to do that. I probably want to have some shop towels handy. I'm actually going to use some gloves this time. I guess the chemicals from oil and stuff can seep into your blood over time. So if you do a lot of your own stuff, gloves and eye protection are recommended. I have my socket wrench, 17 millimeter, to use. It's water. because it's hot out. And this should be all I need to change the oil on this motorcycle. So make sure you take off this one and not this one, even though they're different sizes. So if the 17 millimeter does not fit on it, it's not the right bolt that you're taking off the bottom. So you're gonna want to loosen this one up here, 17 millimeter. Don't let it slip, because you'll strip it out and it should come off. It should break loose pretty easy, even though I let it slip there. We can recommend, definitely might want to have a whole another drain plug on tap if you can. And then once I break them off, I always just use my fingers to take it off the rest of the way. And as you can see, it's very black. Generally, once it's, once you notice it's that color, that's how I generally go when it's time to change my oil. Otherwise, you can go like every 1,000 miles or so. Is what it says in the manual. But generally, I go by the color because I'm doing a lot of high revs in the city here. So it seems to be, once you get used to doing this, you can kind of just do it by sight. And there's some black oil there. So that's where the shop towels come in handy. And as you can see, all this here this is a magnetic, so as you can see, all this here, this is another good reason to wear the gloves. It's because you don't want these metal shavings get into your skin or your bloodstream. Definitely got some chunks of debris there that have come off in the engine, and luckily this thing kind of sucks them up. Just gonna clean the tip of this thing off here. So that's nice and clean now, you can see. Clean that up good. And this is the crush washer here. You're supposed to replace them with every oil change. You usually get a pack of a whole bunch of them. Although, like I said, I generally don't do that, though I have stripped the threads out of my motor before as well, or another motor like that. And that was a painful and expensive thing to do and replace. So as you can see, didn't get very much out of there yet. So I'm gonna grab the bike now and just lean it straight up. What you need to do. Pull it off some bars. So just grab it and just turn it, right side up, and that'll get the rest of the amount of oil that you need to get off of there off. Got these new mosquitoes in LA, they bite in the daytime. Greedy mofos. And if you have a new motor, you may want to actually open the dipstick, because when the motors are really new, the compression is really good and they're really well sealed usually, which hopefully yours is, and it can keep the oil actually from coming out almost at all. So Sometimes I actually had to do that when this motor was first rebuilt, which was a good thing. That can kind of help you if you're seeing like the oil's not coming out very fast. See, you gotta get all of it out of it, but it's good to get most of it if you can. Don't do this with a bigger bike because these ones, it's easy to drop a bigger bike. I can just pull it up with my arms though. It's pretty easy. Such a light bike. Alright, so, and I would recommend definitely always finger tighten this, or else you could cross thread it, which would also strip the threads out on this. So always finger tighten it up is how I go, and then I'll use my wrench to tighten it up. You don't want to you don't have to crank these super tight. Boom, that should do it. As long as you can't move with your fingers, you're really good. Alright. And this next step is, super easy. Just remove the dipstick. Put your funnel in there. Get your new oil. And I use the Valvoline 10W40 4-stroke. All right, and remember, pour the oil this way. It's actually made to be poured, like that, and keep it from spattering. Just dump that on in there. And oil changes on motorcycles is one of those things that I don't think anybody really tells you when you get a motorcycle, is that if you try to take it to the shop and have them do your oil change, they're just going to tell you to do it yourself. I actually had that happen. They were just like, dude, just do it yourself. Generally though, they want you to come in for the first or second oil change to make sure they get the case off, because I guess maybe a lot of people don't take the case off to take the filter, the internal filter out, but whatever. So you're definitely going to be expected if you get a small motorcycle like this or a scooter to do your own oil changes and some of the lighter maintenance, like change spark plug, because it's just one. And motorcycle work is expensive. It could be like, I think it's like $100 an hour, so to work on your bike. That's just to look at it probably. So that is a oil change on the Kymco K Pipe. It's pretty straightforward. There's not really any major caveats to it. You could see the oil when I was pouring it in, how the difference in color. So once it gets all black like that, it's time to give it a change, and then you want it to be nice and translucent like that, nice and see through it. That's what's going to have the best viscosity, as they say, and give the best lubrication for your parts. The synthetic oil will give you a little bit of a boost in power because it is less friction on the internal parts. So you do get a small amount of gains from that. And it generally doesn't break down as quickly, at least in my opinion. So it generally will hold up a little bit longer. So if you don't change oil right on the mark, it'll hold up a little longer than the standard oil. So that's all, folks. Leave any questions or comments about maintenance in the comment section below if you have any. I do have a manual, so I can give you specifications on a lot of things on this bike. that may not be seem to be really not readily available online. So you know, me and my Hello Kitty Punisher bike out. Okay, folks. So you're gonna do a full oil change on these engines. You know, these Chinese engines, basically, they're all the horizontal. They have pretty much same configuration, though they do have different parts. Often they're different configurations. Certain stuff, most stuff is the same. Most of the gaskets are the same. Blah blah blah. So you're gonna have to remove the right clutch cover. You know, it says it's 8mm. I found that they slip off and around the bolts, and so I only use a 5/16 on these engines for any 8mm bolts. Period. So you remove this cover if you're going to do a full oil change. I usually do it every other oil change. This time is not that time for me. And then there's a gasket that goes over this around the whole frame of this side of the crankcase. There's clutch parts here usually, but right under here in this little slot here you can see is where your oil screen goes. And as you can see, this is the oil drain plug goes in here, and you can see where it enters there. This is the engine case that because I didn't get new crush washers, I ended up stripping out the threads. I think I probably also cross-threaded it, so it was done. So I had to get one of these. These will work, though I wish I had a shorter one to go in here. It'd be a little more snug, but I had no problems with this actually riding on the bike. Obviously, you got to watch your clearance a little bit more, but I had no problems riding in the street. And it's magnetic, so you can just pop it off. It has a little magnetic thing you use to pop it off. It's actually pretty convenient, personally. And your oil screen goes here. You just use a pair of needle nose and grab it out of there and just clean it out. Usually, I use like carburetor cleaner, or you can use rubbing alcohol or something to soak it in and just get any little particles out of it, or metal shavings. Unfortunately, I blew this motor up, as you can see, and it has metal shavings all through it, so I have to go through and clean it all out. Be careful getting that stuff on your hands, like I just did, unfortunately. And so I can actually use the motor at some point and rebuild it. So it's good to have an extra motor, rebuilt motor sitting around, right? But that is how you change the oil screen, and that's if you're going to do a full oil change. Other than that, that should all be all you need to do for an oil change on this type of engines. And if you have any more questions, like I said, leave a question in the comments, and I will try to answer them.